The Prodigies of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Series 16. Volume 31, September 8, 1932. Prodigy of the Birth of the Queen of Heaven. Ways of communication between Creator and creature. Who forms nobility? My little mind is always making its rounds inside and outside of the divine volition, and as much as it keeps making its round around it, I never tire. I feel a mysterious force that, attracting me, never says enough, but says, run, search for its acts, love them, adore them, kiss them, and transform your acts into its own, and form your whole life of divine will. And if I am unable to say anything, in my races and rounds I say my tiny little story. I love you. I love you. I adore you. I bless you, O adorable will, in all your works. And since today was the nativity of the Queen of Heaven, I stopped to think about the great portent of her birth, such that it seemed that heaven and earth came to attention to adore this divine prodigy. And my highest good, Jesus, with unspeakable love and tenderness, told me, Blessed daughter of my will, the birth of my celestial mamma encloses all the wonders, all the prodigies united together. But do you know why? It was not her alone to be born, the pure one, the holy one, the beautiful one, the immaculate. No, no, but together with the celestial baby girl, my divine will was born in her, already conceived and enclosed in her to form its life, growing and operating in the gracious little girl. My will enclosing itself to be born together with her, making use of the organ of the celestial creature in order to operate and form its divine life. This was a prodigy that only the eternal love, the divine wisdom and power could operate. It was not just the life that was given, nor was it merely the gift of freeing her from original sin. This would have been nothing for our power. What stupefied and drew the attention of all was my will being born together with her in the world, so much so that heaven and earth remained shaken, came to attention, felt a mysterious force. That same force that dominated them and preserved the whole creation was the same will of ours that moved everything and placed itself and all creation at the service and disposal of this newborn baby girl. So this being born of my will, together with her, was the origin that called all the other prodigies to be centralized in her. Wherever my Fiat reigns, there is no good it does not enclose, no prodigy it does not perform. It wants to make display of its love and power by forming its operating life and place from its own for as much as the creature is capable of containing. Therefore admire and thank our Supreme Being, who reaches so much love toward this newborn little girl as to make our will, which is not born, which has no beginning and no end or limits in its boundaries, to be born in her. Volume 31, October 9th, 1932. Prodigy of the Conception of the Virgin. After this, my little mind was making its round in the acts done by the divine will, and going from one act to another, I arrived at the conception of the Most Holy Virgin. O God, the heavens remain mute before this act performed by the divine will. The angels seem to stammer, and as much as they speak, it seems that they are unable to tell everything about this prodigy so great. Ah, only God can speak about it, because he is the author of the prodigy of what he operated in this conception. And while I remained stupefied, my lovable Jesus, surprising me, told me, "My daughter, the conception of the Immaculate Virgin was a new act of our will, new in the manner, new in the time, new in grace. In her was the whole creation renewed. In our all-seeingness and immensity, we called all creatures, all of their good acts, present, past, and future, as if they were one alone, so that upon everyone and upon everything might this conception be formed, in order to give the right to all, and give them the right, not with words, but with facts, over everything. When our will does an act that must serve for the universal good of all, it puts no one aside, and making use of its omnipotence, it gathers everything together, creatures and acts of theirs, except for sin, because evil does not enter our acts, and it performs the act it wants to do. See, your acts also contributed. You, Luisa, played your part. Therefore, by right, you are her daughter, and the Virgin Queen is by right your mamma. But do you know why we used this way in issuing this holy creature to the light? To renew the whole creation, to love it with new love, and to place everyone and everything in safety, as though under the wings of this celestial creature and mother. We never do our works as isolated, but we always start from our one and only act. And while it is one, it unites everything and does everything as if all were one alone. This is our omnipotence, our creative strength, to do everything, to find everything, and do good to all in one single act. Volume 32, August 6, 1933. How the Celestial Queen grew together with the Divine Will, and how she possessed the speaking Sun. I am always in the arm of the Divine Fiat, which now makes me pause in one of its works, now in another. It seems it wants to make me comprehend well what it did for love of us. So while I was making my round around in its works, it stopped me in the act of the conception of the Virgin, how the Divine Will had its first place in her, and grew and diffused in those little members, and how the tiny little Queen herself grew. They both grew together. What a happy growth! What great prodigy! The Divine Will lowering itself, enclosing itself in the littleness of the Holy Virgin, to grow together with her. But while I was there stupefied, my dear divine teacher, surprising me, told me, "My good daughter, making the Celestial Queen live in the Divine Fiat was the greatest act, the most heroic, of the most intense love that our Supreme Being did. And as much as our goods are immense and innumerable, as we gave our will for it to live in her, we could give her nothing more, nor add anything else, because with it we gave her everything. And she formed within herself the fount and the spring of all the divine goods, as much as it is possible for a creature. Now the tiny little sovereign, by growing together with our will, while growing, formed in her soul, in her heart, in her works and steps, many speaking sons, which spoke to us with voices of light and of irresistible love. They spoke to us extensively. They spoke to us of love. They spoke to us of our very divine being. They spoke to us of mankind. Her steps, her little hands, the beats of her heart spoke to us, reaching into our divine bosom with voice of light, and speaking even inside of us. Her speaking never ceased, because since our will lived in the celestial queen, her whole being was all speaking, not with human voices, but with arcane and divine voices, having always something to say, without ever being exhausted. More so since the divine Fiat is Word, and operating Word, creating Word. How could her speaking cease if she held it in her power? Therefore her speaking kept us besieged, captured, surrounded from all sides, occupied, in such a way as to render itself irresistible and invincible for us to give her whatever she wanted. Her word was powerful, and caused our power to surrender. It was gentle and sweet, and caused our justice to bend. It was light, and it imposed itself over our supreme being, over our love, over our goodness. In sum, there was nothing of us that would not sweetly bend at the powerful voices of this celestial creature. But while my sweet Jesus was saying this, he made me see the celestial queen, and from within her heart came out a sun that invaded the whole celestial court, the entire earth, and its rays were formed of most refulgent light, of speaking voices that spoke to God, to the saints and the angels, to all the creatures of the earth. So my celestial mamma still possesses her continued speaking, her speaking sun, which speaks to her God with voices of speaking light, and loves him and glorifies him in a divine manner. It speaks to the saints, and acts towards them as beatifying mother, and bearer of joy to the whole celestial court. It speaks to the earth, and as mother, she shows us the way to lead us to heaven. And my beloved Jesus added, "See then what it means to live of divine will. One acquires the continuous acting, speaking, loving. What comes out from within my will possesses the operating, illuminating, and perpetuating virtue, and therefore they are triumphant acts, which conquer God." Volume 33, February 4th, 1934. Love of God hidden in the Virgin. The divine paternity gives her the divine maternity, and generates in her the human generations as her children. How the divine immensity renders all of its works inseparable. My abandonment in the divine volition continues. In finding everything that it has done in it, the little atom of my soul makes its round, and makes its round, to give even just a little I love you of mine, for everything it has done in the round of eternity, for love of all creatures. And my lovable Jesus stopped me in the waves of interminable love of the conception of my celestial mamma, and all goodness told me, "Little daughter of my will, your I love you, though little, wounds our love, and from those wounds that it gives us the occasion to release our hidden love, and make itself the revealer of our intimate secrets, and of how much we have loved the creatures. Now you must know that we loved the whole of mankind, but we were forced to keep hidden in our divine being all the immense ardor of our love, because we did not find in it either the beauty that would enrapture our love, or the love that, wounding us, would make our love pour out in order to inundate them, to make itself known, to love them, and make itself loved. On the contrary, they were immersed in the lethargy of sins, such as to cause us to be horrified at merely looking at them. But our love was burning. We loved them and wanted to make our love reach all. How to do it? We had to use a great device of our love in order to reach this, and here is how. We called to life the tiny little Virgin Mary, creating her all pure, all holy, all beautiful, all love, without original sin, and making our very divine will to be conceived together with her, so that between she and us there might be free access, perennial and inseparable union. Now the celestial queen enraptured us with her beauty, and one love ran and ran. With her love she wounded us, and our love, overflowing, hid within her. And looking at all creatures through her beauty and her love, our love poured itself out, and we loved all creatures with love hidden in this celestial queen. So we loved all in her. Seen through her beauty, they no longer seemed ugly to us. Our love was no longer restricted within us, but diffused in the heart of a creature so holy. And by our communicating to her our divine paternity and loving everyone in her, she acquired the divine maternity, to be able to love all as her children, generated by her celestial Father. As she felt that we loved all creatures in her, so she felt that our love formed the new generation of all mankind within her maternal heart. Can there be greater device of love, more loving stratagems, than for our paternal goodness to choose, in order to love creatures and also those who offended us, a creature from that same stock, and form her as beautiful as we could, so that our love would not find any hindrances to be able to love everyone in her and make her loved by all? In this celestial queen, all can find our love hidden in her. More so, since possessing our divine will, she dominated us, to make us love all. And we, with our sweet empire, dominated her, for her to be the most affectionate mother of all. True love cannot be without loving, and it uses all arts, and takes the occasion to love from the littlest things, just as from the greatest. Our love now hides, now makes itself manifest, now directly, and now through an indirect way, in order to make itself known, that we love with incessant love she whom we delivered from the depth of our love. Greater gift we could not give to all generations, in giving them this incomparable creature as the mother of all, and as the bearer of our love hidden in her, in order to feed it to all her children. After this I continued to think about the divine will. The thought that my celestial mamma possessed in her maternal heart the hidden love with which my Creator loved me filled me with joy, thinking that I was looked upon by God from within my dear celestial mother, through her sanctity and her enrapturing beauty. Oh, how happy I felt, and all trust, for I no longer was to be loved and gazed upon by myself, but loved and gazed upon together with my mamma. Oh, she, to make me loved more by my Jesus, shall cover me with her virtues, she shall clothe me with her beauty, and shall hide my miseries and my weaknesses. But one thought wanted to gloom my joy, that our Lord did this for as long as the Queen of Heaven lived on earth. But when he took her into heaven, this device of divine love ended. And my sweet Jesus returning added, "My blessed daughter, our works continue always, and are inseparable from us. So our hidden love continues in the Queen of Heaven, and shall always continue. It would not be operating as God if everything we do could separate from us and not have perennial life. Therefore we love, we pour ourselves over the creatures, and it seems that our love departs from us. But no, it departs and it remains with us, and the love that pours upon the creatures is inseparable from us, and renders inseparable she who has received this love. So all our works, heaven and earth, creatures that come out to the light of the day, seem to depart from us, but no, they are all inseparable from us, and this by virtue of our immensity, which is such that, enveloping everything, there is not one point where it is not present, rendering everything we do inseparable from us. Therefore neither can our works separate from us, nor can we from them. It can be said that they form one single body for us, and our immensity and power are like blood circulation that maintains the life for everyone and for everything. At the most there might be works that are distinct, one from the other, but being separable, never. And I, on hearing this, surprised, said, "Yet, my love, there are the reprobates already separated from you. They too are works come out of you. How is it then that they no longer belong to you?" And Jesus, "You are mistaken, my daughter. They do not belong to me by way of love, but they do by way of justice. My immensity that envelops them holds its power over them, and if they did not belong to me, my punishing justice would have no one to punish, because if things did not belong to me, they would lose life instantly. But if this life exists, there is the one who preserves it, and who justly punishes it. Therefore the sovereign lady in heaven still possesses our hidden love toward each creature. Even more, feeling her Creator loving all creatures from within her maternal heart is her greatest contentment. And she, acting as true mother, how many times she hides them inside her love, to make them loved, inside her sorrows, for them to be forgiven, inside her prayers, to obtain for them the greatest graces. How she is the coverer who knows how to cover and excuse her children before the throne of our Majesty. Therefore let yourself be covered by your celestial mamma, who shall take care of the needs of her daughter. Volume 33, April 12, 1935. How the Celestial Queen loved us in her conception. Prodigies that the divine volition did in her. I continued making my round in the divine will, and as I arrived at the Immaculate Conception, my sweet Jesus made me pause, telling me, "My daughter, I want to make you penetrate deeper inside the Immaculate Conception of my Most Holy Mother, its prodigies, how she loved her Creator, and how for love of us she loved all creatures. The little queen, in the act of being conceived, began her life together with the divine will, and therefore together with her Creator. So she felt the strength, the immensity, the ardor of the divine love, and these were so great that she felt dissolved, drowned in love, as to be able to do nothing other than love the one who so much loved her. She felt loved, but so much to the point of being given his will into her power, to be kept as her own life. This can be called the greatest love of God, the love most heroic, the love that alone can say, "I have nothing left to give you. I have given you everything." And the little queen made use of this life in order to love him back for as much as she was loved. She would not lose one instant without loving him, and trying to match him in loving. Now our divine will that possesses the all-seeingness of everything hid nothing from her. It made all human generations present to this holy creature, and each sin they had committed and would commit. And even from the first instant of her conception, the celestial little one, who knew no other life than the divine will alone, began to grieve with divine sorrow over each sin of creature, so much so as to form around each of their sins a sea of divine love and sorrow. My will, which knows not how to do small things, formed inside her beautiful soul seas of sorrow and of love for each sin and for each creature. Therefore the holy little Virgin, from the very first instant of her life, was Queen of sorrow and of love, because our omnipotent will gave her such sorrow and love that if it had not sustained her with its power, she would have died for each sin, and be consumed with love so many times for as many creatures as would exist. And our divinity began to receive, by virtue of our will, divine sorrow and divine love for all and for each one. Oh, how we felt satisfied and repaid for all, and by virtue of this divine sorrow and love, we felt inclined toward all. Her love was so great that, lording it over us, she would make us love those whom she loved, so much so that as soon as this excelling creature came to light, the eternal word ran to come and look for man and save him. Who can resist the operating power of our will in the creature? And what can it not do and obtain when it wants it? Oh, if all knew the great good we did to the human generations by giving them this celestial queen! It was she who prepared redemption, who conquered her Creator, and was the bearer of the eternal word upon earth. Oh, all would cling to her maternal knees, to implore from her that divine will whose life she possesses. You have reached the end of the Prodigies of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Volume 31 through Volume 33, Part 1. Fiat.